quotation than that.
Well, that is a direct quotation from him.
Right, but I think there was more to it
Well, I would not.
than that sentence. 'Cause
Well, I would
I
not.
believe it doesn't it go into like a 1924 version of the Quran. Or am I thinking of something else? Maybe I might be wrong. Don't quote me.
Yeah,
I think it was more to that article than that sentence.
Well, the sentence is quite profound, I think, and quite clear. I think Angela Knuith's sentence is actually quite, or a paragraph there is very clear as well. Basically, what she's saying is that the manuscript evidence that we have, including carbon dating, okay, including carbon dating, seems
I
to
actually saw that.
confirm the Muslim narrative of an early fixed 7th century text, then
Are you
challenge
talking
it.
about the one in the
Birmingham.
library?
Uh, so, so the Birmingham manuscript that was discovered has been carbon
I actually
dated.
saw that yesterday.
Okay, it's been carbon dated to around the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Yeah, but wasn't that before though?
No, it's for. I think you must know a bit about science. When you do carbon dating, you have a band of
Yeah, range.
a range, yeah, and it could be 100 years or 150 years. What the carbon dating of that manuscript proves,
I might have a picture of it. Actually, I think I took.
what it proves is that it proves that it could have been at the time of the Prophet or shortly after the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So what I'm saying to you is that we have good reasons to believe that Muhammad, peace be upon him, existed. We have manuscript evidence, carbon dated, that shows and that provides evidence, I believe, hard scientific evidence, that the Quran was an early fixed text.
Yeah, but
Now, what?
I think the carbon dating for the 4 pieces they have actually predate.
Nothing predates
Yeah,
the Prophet
isn't it
Muhammad.
like 580 to 630
Yeah,
or
but
640?
what does carbon dating mean? Carbon dating means that you have a band that'll be 100 or 150 years.
Okay.
It could be decades or half a century before a particular event may have happened, or it could be 50 or up to maybe 100 years after the event actually happened. But what it shows is it happened in that era, that time, around
Right, but
about that time.
that time was, I don't know this. I want to say it was 5 something to 6 around the time of Muhammad, 640. Can't remember the date. I know I have pictures on all the time. But wouldn't that be before? It could be in the range or before.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So what does that? What does that? What does that tell us?
What that tells us is that the limitations on the data that we have only gives us a band, but what it does do is it puts that document in that era,
In that era. Or
which,
before.
which means, well, that era is within the 100 years or 150 years limitations of carbon dating.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah?
Was it that wide of a range? I
Yeah,
thought it
the,
was like 60 years. Or
the
something.
range is generally quite wide.
Okay.
So you can't say analytically or empirically this is the date, but all you can do with carbon dating is it says it falls within these boundaries.
Okay.
Which
so
basically
what if it fell in the boundary of 590? Because I know it went.
So if
from
it
like
falls within the
580.
boundary, for example, where it could never have happened at the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, i.e. 300 years before or something,
Yeah, but
then you'd have an argument.
I think the range. I'm trying to remember, was 5. I know it was 5 something.
572 is when the Prophet was
572.
born.
So if it fell in that range, 570, say 572 or 575, would that not negate the that it was a revelation at 6 something?
No, because carbon dating just gives you a band. It just puts something roughly in that era. You can't say that it definitely came before, or you can't claim definitely it came afterwards. All you can do, it has limitations.
Within this certain range.
Band, that's it.
Okay.
So either way, I can't make the argument that it was 610. Just as you can't make the argument that it's 520.
Right.
You understand my point?
Yeah,
So
that
all
leaves
it does.
more questions, I think.
No.
I mean, not so much questions, but it would for me, I got to accept that whole range. So I have to accept the earliest range and the latest range.
Yes.
So would that not
So then how would you
definitively say it was
right?
at that time?
That's a
You
good question.
can't.
That's a good question. So what you would do is you would look for other collaborating evidence to shed light on what the date is more likely to be. So for example, let's say the document talks about some aspect of history. So now you can tie it down to a particular event or a particular time.
Which doc you talking about? The Birmingham?
I'm just, no, I'm just,
Or
I'm just saying any
Okay.
document.
Okay.
You could say, is there any other material evidence
would
that suggests a
correlate
date?
with it, yeah.
Like a
Okay.
coin, for example.
Uh-huh.
And if you don't find any coins earlier than 20 years after the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, then it's reasonable to assume that there probably weren't any. Because all you find is those that came after. If you find rock inscriptions that came after and none before, it's reasonable to assume that because we've investigated and we've looked at, that the later date seems more plausible.
Okay.
If we have,
I agree with you on that
if we have
instance.
other documents, many other manuscripts that all date after, shortly after, or a century after, or 50 years after, it then seems reasonable that it was a later date and not the earlier date. So there's a collaboration of different aspects of evidence.
The coins that you're referring to, interrupt or the rocks, have they been carbon dated?
Have they been?
Have the inscriptions on those been? The
Yes.
coins
So for
carbon
example,
dated?
we know that a particular king existed at a particular time. We know historically that they had a reign for so many years or whatever. And if somebody now historically has a battle with somebody
So-
and they take over that particular people and they stamp something on the coin, then it's highly likely that it came from that era, basically. So all I'm asking you to do is it reasonable? That's all I'm saying to you.
It's as reasonable as it's unreasonable at this point.
So,
Because-
despite all the collaborating evidence to show that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, existed, you're saying it's as reasonable that he
Well,
didn't exist.
That's when you say collaborating evidence that he existed. I'm not sure that there is collaborating evidence that he existed.
Do you believe anybody in history existed?
Sure.
Who?
I believe my grandparents existed. I believe
Okay.
other people that my great grandparents. I believe that those things. I can't definitively say that Jesus existed.
No. So I'm just saying historical figures. Abraham Lincoln, did he exist?
Yes,
Why do you believe he existed?
because I'm from America and half of our history is related to Abraham Lincoln. There's paintings of him. There's statues of him.
Yeah.
There's a lot of evidence to substantiate his existence. The evidence.
So if there was
for Muhammad-
so hold on a second. Abraham Lincoln existed because of collaborating evidence,
Collaborating
yeah?
evidence, yes.
Okay. I would say there's probably I would say
actually,
there's probably
my next-
100 times more evidence of Muhammad existing, peace be upon
My-
him, than Abraham Lincoln existing.
Off topic.
But you're wanting to be skeptical on that, but you accept Abraham Lincoln.
Well, I accept it for the fact that I can see his Abraham Lincoln's granddaughter lives in the house next door, or lived in the house next door,
How do you know she was his granddaughter?
because I don't know that for a fact.
Right. But you
All
accept
I
that.
know is by
Look, let's
birth.
be reasonable.
Okay.
Let's have a conversation which generally is a conversation in terms of evidences that we would bring forward for anything in life
Okay.
that we would accept on the basis of this collaboration of evidences.
Okay.
You believe Abraham Lincoln existed
Yes.
because American history says so, people say so, documents say so. Okay?
Yes.
There are
Contemporary documents, because
Fine.
I can see where it was signed at the halls of the Constitution.
That's fine. And we have carbon dating of texts mentioning Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, at and around and even shortly after the Prophet, peace be upon him, passing away. We have the coins. We have the inscriptions.
Yeah, but the
we have the
coins-
buildings.
the
We
coins-
have now 100,000 companions that were at the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, with multiple testimonies ending up in multiple parts of the globe, saying the same thing. Muhammad existed.
Hang on.
These are the words of Muhammad. This is what he said. And you're skeptical about that, but
Well,
you're
you
willing to
said-
accept Abraham Lincoln.
Well, the Abraham Lincoln acceptance for me is because I can go to Washington D.C. and see where he signed.
How do you know that's his signature?
I don't know for a fact that it's his signature. All I can use is the evidence that this was